Thank you for that lovely welcome, and I want to welcome everyone back to Central Library to help us kick off Season 5 of LA Made. And my name is Wendy Westgate, and this is my colleague Terry Markson, and we are part of Los Angeles Public Library's LA Made team. LA Made is a series of cultural programs funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities. And our 5th season has a selection of 168 educational and entertaining programs, both here at the Taper and at branches across the system. And now on to today's program. Welcome to another sold-out performance of Strong Words at Los Angeles Public Library. This is their 3rd year with us, and I can't think of a better way to get things started in 2020. Everybody loves a good story, especially an LA story. This story started with 3 guys at the gym and has grown into its own community of artists and adventurous audience members, including me. There's something magical about sitting outside under the stars on a Saturday night at their main Atwater Village location, listening to these storytellers. And I think you'll feel that way about today's program, too. Please welcome the co-founder of Strong Words, Larry Dean Harris.
Oh, what a day, what a day. But let me tell you, for the next 90 minutes, you are all ours. And we're so glad to have you here. Welcome to Strong Words 53, 93, 173. My name is Larry Dean Harris, and that doesn't matter at all. We've got David, Harley, and Edendale. Give it up.
Don't forget to watch the free show. Thank you.
David, Harley, and Edendale. All right, I got my act together backstage. We are Strong Words 71, if you can stand it. 8 years of insanity, and let me tell you, this is our favorite gig because we don't have to wipe the chairs down or put them away when we're done or take out the trash. It's our favorite thing. I never leave the house without 2 things. 1, my inhaler, and 2, my library card. You know what you can do with your library card? You can go home and download the song you just heard on the library's Freegal software platform. It's free, it's legal. David gets a cut, we checked. And it's one of the many, 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 many reasons we love the library, which currently isn't on the presidential budget for 2021. Along with the NEA, the EPA, the EIEIO. Write your people. So, we're back in the Temple of Stories. It's sacred. It's sacred to me. I've been going to the library since I was a little kid, since it was a bookmobile. Remember the bookmobile? Oh, Midwesterners love ya. Okay, so because it's a sacred space, can we have a little light in the house? I need to see my virgins. Who's never been to a Strong Words show? Wow. You're in for something. All right, now I need to see or hear from those who have indulged in the glories of the stories. Who are my people? Love that. And last but not least, who are my story whores? The ones who just can't get enough, who come back again and again. Thought so. All right, those of you who have been to the show know we have some really important rules. That's right. There are no rules, but there is a request. I want us to do something so completely insane and subversive. I'd like you to take your phone out. Ready? For the next 90 minutes, let's just turn them off. We never do this. We always allow it. But just today, wouldn't it be nice to know that there's nothing out there? There's no, war and Mitch McConnell and, Army heroes being treated poorly. That'd be great. Appreciate you. Now, stories. Oh my gosh. She's my work wife. She's the hottest work wife ever. And she's also the smartest, and you gotta kind of hate her, love her for that. But we teach storytelling together, we tour together, and she's just an absolute delight, and I couldn't think of a better person to open our show with that all-important first story. Please welcome Marlena Nichols.
Hello, everybody. Oh, welcome to Strong Words. You're in for a treat tonight. I am going to talk to you about something that happened to me a few months ago in my house. I'm scanning FEMA's earthquake preparedness checklist, trying to figure out what I have in the house that I can quickly pull together for an emergency to-go bag. Now, my mother is on her tiptoes behind me, also scanning the list, and she says, "But Marlena, how much chocolate does it say we need?" And you know what? It doesn't. It doesn't say anything about chocolate. She just looks at me confused. "But that's not much of a list, then, is it?" She goes hunting around in her purse and she pulls out 2 after 8 chocolates, 2 bonbons, and a box of Wilhelmina mints and starts lobbing them at me and says, "Of course you know, we will need more." "Wait, but what about your clothes?" "It's not that kind of bag, Mom. It's just a to-go bag. It's meant to hold us for a couple of days in case there's an emergency, until help arrives." "Well, whatever happens, you're going to need at least 1 evening gown." And she disappears upstairs into my closet. And it's taken me months to convince my 80-year-old German mother to come and visit me from her home in my hometown in Memphis to Los Angeles, because every time I invite her, she uses California's latest natural disaster as an excuse for why she won't come. "But Marlene, aren't you having a drought? Wasn't there a mudslide on the PCH? Isn't Malibu on fire again?" And I finally get her here, and the day after she arrives, there is a 6.4 earthquake, not 100 miles away, which she experiences by herself because I am at yoga. Now, the top story on every single news channel is like, SoCal set to experience more earthquakes. Could the next one hit before lunch? How prepared are you? Yeah, so according to this list, not very. I've got granola bars, I've got Band-Aids, some batteries from the junk drawer, my lip gloss, a single can of tuna, and it's all spread out on the dining room table, and they are all mocking me. I swear to you, the tuna can is like, yeah, I don't think she's gonna make it. And then my lip gloss is like, where are we going? This is so random. My mom comes back, she drops an armful of garment bags on top of my supplies, and she unzips them, like inspecting gown after gown. If there's an emergency, Marlene, and the rescue workers have to decide who to help first, I want you in a strapless number that screams, "Take me!" And as if on cue, Earthquake the sequel hits. And it's way more powerful than the other one. So we drop to our knees and we crawl under the table, and immediately I start praying. I'm like, please, God, please, do not let me die in the valley. And please don't let me kill my mother. Meanwhile, she is next to me, tapping the floorboards and singing. And she's singing, Ich bin die Fischerlola, der Lieblings der Saison. Mom, are you okay? Oh, sorry. I sing in translation. The boys all love my music, I can't keep them away. Welcome to Cabaret Weimar, LA. And then she just pats my hand and she's like, oh, don't worry, Marlene. I'm fine. This all just reminds me of the war. Oh my God, not the war. To be fair, my mother was born right into the Second World War, right into Berlin, a city that ends up being 80% destroyed. And it's colored her whole life, like it colors many of the children who have to live through war today. It's even colored my life because I've really been a good girl my whole life. Well, okay, mostly, within reason. And I've done that because I never wanted her to have any sort of added trauma that I put on her. But somehow, here we are, under the table, fingers crossed it's not the big one. You know, Marlene, I used to sing to my little sister during the bombings. Here we go. I was 4, so that meant she was maybe 3. I think of all of us, she was the most scared. And then when the planes came, we had to run down to the cellars. And the whole apartment building was down there. And some of the neighbors, they would promise her a spoonful of sugar if she sang. And then when the bombing stopped, we had to go back upstairs. And I would take her around to all the neighbors' apartments. And she would stand there in the doorway, tip back her head like she's a little bird. And they would pour the sugar right onto her tongue. And do you know, she never shared. Even then, hateful bitch. And then the earth grows quiet, and we crawl out from under the table, picking up all the gowns that have scattered across the floor. And she's like, Marlene, you have to pack something beautiful for the woman who is going to use this bag. The woman, that woman, that she may be walking away from everything she ever knows. That woman may not be coming back, and even if she does, she won't be the same. I own a lot of evening gowns. And so some of them have not actually been worn in public. You're welcome. But my emergency to-go bag starts out as a backpack, and eventually it sort of evolves into this go bag mountain by the front door. And since my mom practically lives with a pincushion on her wrist, which seems like, between aftershocks, perfect time to see if everything still fits. So I strip down to my underwear, I put on a pair of heels, and my mom starts outlining my silhouette in pens. Oh, imagine, Marlene, I used to run through the streets of Berlin in 3-inch heels when I was 21. Imagine it I can even hear it. I can hear it, heels clicking through checkpoints between the British sector, the French sector, the American sector, the Russian sector. She's sashaying her way through occupied city to some underground club. It's all very Cold War, film noir. Well, it wasn't that romantic, Marlene. But I was once going to catch the Straßenbahn in East Berlin, and then I saw this young man standing in the rain. And I ran to share my umbrella with him, and he invited me for coffee. Of course, he was too short for me, so nothing was going to happen. But it was something to do. And I sat next to him, and I remember I counted the raindrops that fell from his hair to his coat. And then these two police officers came into the cafe, Russian police, and we had to show our identification papers. And he looked at mine and he said, West-Berliner, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. Go home. Now, as a young man, he walked me to the train, and he was very embarrassed. And it felt safer to be in motion on the train. And I ran like hell once I got back to the West, in heels. Go home, because what does that even mean anymore? As I step out of my dress, careful that the pins don't scrape, my mother grabs my arm. Marlene, there are eyes watching me. I look across the room, and the eyes that she's referring to belong to a lizard that's in my dining room. It's not an iguana. It's not a gecko. It's just big enough to be an existential problem that I have to take care of. But I am pretty naked. So I go and I reach for the dress, and my mother squeezes my arm harder and says, leave the dress. Get the broom. Luckily for me, the lizard is so Hollywood. He's like overly handsome, totally stoned. And as I sweep him, he's just like, hey, lady, how are you? Is this a party? It's like, whoa, what's that? Hey, watch the broom. And I accidentally sweep him right onto my mother's foot, and she screams, Harry? I'm sorry, have you two met? Yesterday. He was sunning himself outside. I told him we were not receiving visitors. So I hustle Harry out into the courtyard. I'm still half naked, but now I'm surrounded by palm trees, holding a broom. And my mother stops me before I get into the door and looks me up and down, and she says, do you think that you'll ever leave L.A.? Every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. It's every day. It's every day. It's every day. It's every day. But it's still here. It's every day. It's every. Now, the morning that she leaves, I wake up in bed, and she's at my makeup mirror trying my latest eye cream. And she asked me, she's like, how far back do you think this will take me? And I said, how far back do you want to go? And she's like, well, that is the question, isn't it? And then we start to hear this kind of chirping sound. It's not a chirping, more like a cheeping, like a cheep, cheep. And my mother's like, oh, that's been going for a half hour already. Shut up, you stupid bird. It's not a bird. It's my carbon monoxide detector. I have a gas leak. So I call dispatch at the gas company, and the guy advises me, open all the windows, evacuate, but stay close because the technician they're sending out doesn't have a cell phone. And if we're not there, he'll just keep going. So basically, evacuate to the front yard. Now, while I'm on the phone panicking, my mother, very quietly, brings her suitcase down the stairs, puts it next to my to-go mountain, and pulls out her nightgown. She sits on the couch, and she starts cutting it into strips with my kitchen scissors. Mama, what are you doing? And she says, I'm making rags, Marlene. I thought we would wash your windows while we wait. We can't do that because I need to get you to a safe place. And that would be where, Marlene? This is L.A. If we die, it's better to die in motion. And that's why 20 minutes later, I'm on a footstool washing LA off of my windows when this really handsome Latino man in like the blue uniform and the tool belt looks up at me through the screen door, and I say, "Hi, I'm Marlena. Are you looking for me?" And he says, "I am. I'm Ulysses." As in the Iliad and the Odyssey. I am in 2 epics. Now, I never know if the universe is trying to talk to me with like really beautiful metaphors or if it's straight up fucking with me. But I feel very calm that Ulysses is in my house. And my mother, who has always liked handsome men, immediately looks at me and she's like, "Marlena, you need more lipstick. Marlena, lipstick." Now, to refresh our like high school minds, Odysseus, known by his Latin name of Ulysses, is the king of Ithaca, and he's in Homer's epic poems, and he goes to fight the Trojan War for 10 years, and then kind of pisses off the gods, and it takes him 10 years to get back home, but his 10 years are full of adventure. And now Ulysses is here, focused on my carbon monoxide detector. It's curious, it's all quite curious. This detector is from 2010. It's made in China. They're only meant to last 10 years, and you're at the edge of the world with this one. However, the particular beeping you were listening to just means your battery's dying. Idiot! But let me check your appliances, since I'm here, to be safe. And then a few moments later, Ulysses comes back. Found it. I have a gas leak? Yes, it's your water heater. But that has nothing to do with the detector going off? Nothing at all. So your real name is Ulysses? Who named you? Who names their kid Ulysses? How did you get that name? And he says, "Well, my mother." Why? And my mother is sitting on the couch applying her own lipstick because I'm a wasteland. And she says to him, "It's all about the journey, isn't it, Ulysses? It's all about the journey." And Ulysses looks at her and is like, sure. It's all about the journey. And maybe that's just it. It's all about the journey. Thank you very much.
The story is true. 3 guys walked into a gym, and I was one of them. One was Bernard Cooper, and he's a super big deal. And then there was another fellow, and we put on a show of 3 stories some 8 years ago. And was very well received. So I said, let's do it again. And Bernard is like, I'm too important. So we found other people. And then I turned to the other guy and I said, do you want to do it? He's like, yeah. And he came back and he told the same story. Because it turns out he only had one story. So when it came time to do Strong Words 3, I said, you can't tell the same story again, right? So he kind of went on his own. And then he posted on Facebook, he was like, I'm telling my story at a different event, and it's not all vaudeville like Strong Words. Vaudeville, what does that even mean? Like, yeah, that I read. And I looked it up, and you know what vaudeville means? Voices of the city. Did you notice our tagline? Strong Words, Voices of the City. Thanks. And let me tell you, we started going out into the city and, we found a German American and we found a Lebanese Dominican American, and she's coming up later, and a Filipino American and a Syrian American, and they're all on the program, and a hillbilly American, and And when you watch the slideshow in a little bit, you're going to see Japanese Americans and Irish Americans and Jewish Americans and Toledo Americans. They're all here. And you know what they all have in common? They all have a library card. And they're also all Americans. He's my favorite Filipino American, and he's just joined our family a year ago. And we're so happy to have him, and you're so lucky to hear him. Please welcome Roy Cruz.
Hi, and welcome to the library. Please be quiet. I met Rusty on Grindr. An English professor in a small liberal arts college, 50s, handsome, and has a linebacker build. We preferred to meet up for dinner rather than hook up right away. After a couple of text messages, we decided to go on a dinner date. We met up at a diner in Los Feliz. The waitress came to take our orders. He ordered cheeseburger and fries, and when the waitress asked mine, I said, tuna melt. As the waitress took down our orders, Rusty asked me if Tagalog, the Filipino language, is an inflective language. I couldn't answer that because to me the word inflective means uptalk or the proverbial valley girl accent. Rusty gave me an impression of intelligence and erudition, which I found very sexy. And then he said, "Can you say tuna melt again?" So I did, tuna melt. He corrected me. There is no inflection in tuna melt. It felt like a Henry Higgins Eliza Doolittle moment. I thought it was romantic. He was hot, and I wouldn't mind if the evening turned into a musical. Then he said, "Remember, no inflection, so say it again." Oh. So when he corrected me the second time, he sounded frustrated. My heart felt cold, and at that moment, I realized that Rusty is a bitch. The excitement turned sour, and even though the food hasn't arrived yet, it already left a bad taste in the mouth. I could tell that he was going to ask me to say tuna melt again, so I stopped him. And I said, "Are you going to correct me every time I say a word because I'm about to say the word motherfucker?" Before he could explain himself, our food came. The dinner was silent for the most part because I was so afraid that I would put the inflections in wrong places. So I didn't want to make the scene, so I just tried my best to move from one topic to the next topic, even though I had a burning desire to smother Rusty's face with tuna salad and all of its omega fats. Rusty tried to share some trivia about the English language, like the difference between phrases, "it begs the question" and "it raises the question." But at that point, I didn't care if he asks or begs for my attention. After dinner, we said our goodbyes and we parted ways with a handshake. I got home feeling disappointed, and I was determined to not let Rusty's fastidiousness ruin my evening. It was still early, so I decided to go on Grindr. Because the evening might turn up in my favor, I updated my profile to make it more captivating. I wrote Asian, speaks English, Tagalog, French, and Spanish, no racial hang-ups, and can go from mild to wild in a New York minute. I'm an alternative-looking artist who's into cranberries, cake, and spoon. These are the bands that I like. I always like to let people know of my music preference. It gives guys a clue on your cultural capital. I've been swiping for about 15 minutes and was not getting any messages. I have a rule when cruising on with hookup apps. If in half an hour no deal has been broken, I'm gonna be spending the night with Hulu or the Dr. Oz podcast. Looking for sex is just like looking for parking. When you don't need it, it's everywhere. But when you desperately want it, you just gotta valet. On the 28th minute, I heard a notification that ping I've been waiting for. I looked at his profile. His username is Sam323. Picture is handsome, shirtless, at the top of Runyon Canyon. And the profile says, into older guys, love smooth skin. And among his interests is going to Coachella. He messaged me, wanna play? I messaged back, sure, I can host. So after giving him my address, I prepped the apartment for an evening of validation. I tidied up the apartment, arranged my art books side by side with gay literature and veganism. Then I set the lights. Lighting is an important element. It must be flattering, preferably matching the Hudson filter on Instagram. Finally, the secret sauce of the evening, the music playlist. A booty call requires curated music. Songs must follow the arc of the evening's sensuous narrative. So no Madonna, no Whitney, no Ariana, or it can turn your partner into a pumpkin seed. Instead, start with some classic rock, then Wu-Tang Clan, and once you're airborne, 9 Inch Nails. And that's what I call the fuck playlist. So Sam323 texted me on my way. The less words, the better. At exactly half an hour later, I heard a knock on the door, and when I opened, I saw the most beautiful Middle Eastern man. I offered to shake my hand, and I said, "Hi, I'm Roy." When it was his turn, he just kissed me and said in a muffled voice, "I'm Sam, and I'm deaf." I was pleasantly flabbergasted. I didn't know how to react. I was never taught the etiquette in receiving deaf visitors. So I just smiled and kissed him back. I showed him in. I started to get anxious on how we were going to communicate. I knew it was only sex, but Sam was unique, and I was determined to make the evening unforgettable. He showed me his phone, and I showed mine, and looked at each other, and together we launched WhatsApp. And we began to text each other. I learned that he was born in Israel, raised in Colombia, and now lives in La Cañada. I told him I'm from the Philippines. I've lived in Hollywood for 25 years, but people think I live in Echo Park. When he asked me if he could use my charger, that was the cue to take him to the bedroom. But first, I motioned him to wait for a second. I was going to tell Alexa to play the fuck list when I realized, oh my God, he's deaf. He's not gonna care what I play. So I yelled at Alexa, "Alexa, play Liza Minnelli live at the Winter Garden." The overture was sensational. The perfect soundtrack for foreplay, a prelude to an evening of quiet passion. The carnal desire was deafening. There's an added layer when there are no words spoken during lovemaking. Eyes are wide open when you kiss, and you can feel the temperature of the muscles singing. And when it gets rough, the language of the vial is transmitted by slapping and spanking. If you want to slow down, there is no safe word, just a gentle squeeze. And I usually play the role of the receiver in bed. And I play it in different angles, so I should be making louder sounds. Sometimes, though, making sounds can turn off your partner, so I keep it to a minimum, and usually with masculine groans. When I lied on my stomach, I assumed my favorite pose. I started making noises. I started talking like a girl and screamed, "Help me! Help me! There's a mercenary in my bed and he's assaulting me." So after juicing the last grapefruit for my greyhound, we both smiled and gave each other the succulent looks of gratification. I knew the pillow conversation would never happen, and that's the downside of hooking up with a deaf guy. I'm not the only one with needs. So I took out my sketchbook and drew a portrait of him. I drew him slowly while he stared at the dimly lit lamp on the nightstand. As I smudged the charcoal on the sketchpad, I could hear Liza singing Cabaret on the background. I showed him the finished picture and he gave me a thumbs up. We said our goodbye with a little lesson in sign language. I got a text from him an hour later saying how much he enjoyed the evening, and I texted back, "Me too." A couple of weeks later, I saw Sam again on Grindr. I hit him up. "Hey Sam, it's me. Wanna play?" And Sam's answer was, "I don't do repeats." I was disappointed. I liked Sam. He made me appreciate silent lovemaking. I was going to message back to say, "Hit me up anytime you change your mind." But before I could do it, he blocked me. I never heard from him again. Recently, though, I went to another app, Adam for Adam. While browsing in the hope of finding Sam, I get a message from Cute Cub in LBC. "Hey Roy, Cute Cub." I didn't recognize the picture until I looked closely. Oh, it's Rusty. He apologized for the awkward dinner date we had, and before I could respond, he asked, "Do you want to play?" I said, "No, I'm sick with sinus inflection." Thank you.
Roy Cruz! How many virgins did we lose in that one? All right. It's called storytelling for grown-ups. Okay? Thank you, Roy. Speaking of virgins, this is a LA Made first. We have a virgin making his Strong Words debut with us this afternoon. I saw this guy at the most amazing show at the Ford Amphitheater. It was like Strong Words with an art director / fashion designer, so everybody looked amazing and didn't wear t-shirts. And he just blew me away, and I couldn't believe it when a friend of a friend, Sammy, I found him on Facebook, and I'm like, can you ask? See if he'd maybe do. See. And he did, and he said yes. And you're in for a treat. Let's please give it up. And be strong and supportive. It's his first time. Be gentle with him. Making his Strong Words debut, Mr. Omar Offendum.
I'm like the palm trees in LA, twice removed from Sham. But when I was growing up, nobody knew where I was from. I tell them that I'm Syrian. They stood there looking curious, start speaking to me in Spanish. Some would even speak in tongues. I wasn't offended. Never am. Couldn't have an agenda. well aware of the privileges my new blue passport renders. Nose clean, no angel but no fiend, no playboy but no chump, no label could own me. If only I swear more and say I don't care more, but those who know me know that isn't me, so I'm here more. Showing up for my fam, being present when I can, recognizing it's a blessing to caress my mother's hand or be given a microphone to address another man and remind him I'm no lesser of a man. Damn, older I get, the more I've come to comprehend that some of these rappers I might never understand. Oh well. You know, as long as I live in LA, I'm happy. It's where the palm trees are given. Concrete jungle, calm breeze, hard living. Kicks on a power line, grapes on a sour vine, Jake's on a county line, all points bulletin. Silicon Valley, small chips, big checks. Silicon Sally, fake lips, fake. Hey. Billboards selling pretty women, safe sex, and casinos where the broke place bets. Look, this is for the Muslims and the mobsters, hipsters and the Rastas, Pinoy y la raza, chumash to the Shasta, calling Cali home, mi casa's they casa. But them spaghetti westernism pastas, left coast righteous, with or without wasta, that's how to be connect. You trying to be a boss? Stop listening to what the haters say, cuz. Be happy, you live in California, hey, cuz. Yeah. Now I remember 2004, when I moved out here for the first time, following my lady love, Ashley. Been together for 17 years. Had our 6th wedding anniversary yesterday on Valentine's Day. Thank you. Got 2 babies at home. She's with them now. 4-year-old boy named Jabron and a 1-year-old girl named Ella. Now, I remember in 2016, amidst the height of election rhetoric and being told that Syrians don't belong here, refugees don't belong here, and in fact, seeing someone get elected on that sort of platform, Muslims getting banned, I was looking for a sign. I needed something to tell me that I could be rooted here in the way that I feel, truly, living in Los Angeles. I feel rooted here. And it was at that moment that I caught wind of a simple fact that the majority of the palm trees in Los Angeles, in fact, all but one, actually don't have roots here. They're not indigenous to the Southwest. It's just the Washingtonia that is, which is probably not what the indigenous people called it. And so the majority of these palm trees actually came via the Spanish colonial settlers who brought them and planted them here in order to be reminded of the Iberian Peninsula. However, they're not even indigenous to the Iberian Peninsula. Simple truth is that they were brought by people from yeah. You know, Muslims always talk about how 800 years in Spain. It's true. It's a pretty fascinating little nexus or fulcrum of history when you think about what happened in 1492. The last Muslim empire in Spain fell, and hey, Columbus got here, wreaking havoc on the indigenous peoples of this land, enslaving millions of people from Africa, creating the behemoth of an economy that is built on the military-industrial complex that is wreaking havoc across the world today. In fact, right back there in Syria, where many of these palm trees came from. And I stood there on my front steps, holding my newly born baby boy, twice removed from Sham. Sham is, of course, Bilad al-Sham, or Greater Syria, holding him in my arms, hearing all that nasty rhetoric, and looking across the street at a palm tree, standing tall and proud, letting that wind just blow through the palm tree leaves and giving me that feeling that I needed, reminding me that I could be rooted here. It took me back, actually, to when my wife told me at the time, my girlfriend, who was black and Jewish, this is a Syrian mother's dream come true, of course. And I remember I remember when I met her that first night. Actually, I should be honest, it wasn't when we met. I lived below her my entire second year of college, and she didn't pay any attention to me, but I started rapping in my third year of college. Things changed. But I remember when we first, how do we say it politely, hooked up at a party. It was Halloween night. She was wearing some Tinkerbell outfit. It's pretty sexy. And I was lost in translation when she asked for a dance. Said she was from America, might as well have been France. We tried to do the debka, couldn't hit the right stance. We tried to do the tango, didn't have the right pants. Too droopy, my head too loopy. She had me in a trance, unimpressed though by my parlance. Fox trotted off, thought I had no chance. No attempt in redemption, alas I stand corrected. Scribbling digits upon a napkin, passing it to me saying, yo, let's make this happen again. She thought my dance move just needed some practicing. Plus she had heard Damascus was full of passionate men. I'm like, yep, that's true. None more than I. Naturalized citizen, not some foreign guy. What I lack in experience, I make up for in Colonia. Where are you going, ya? I'm Arwen. I'd love to join ya. She said, I'm moving to California. Oh. Not Patagonia. Nah, it's too cold. Not Macedonia. Nah, it's too old. She said, to California, to Southern California. Not Bora Bora. It's too far. Not Tora Bora, man, it's too hard. Let's move to California, to Southern California. My Syrian mama was like, you're moving too fast. My Syrian mama was like, this isn't gonna last. My Syrian mama was like, you really trying to be with her? My Syrian mama was like, what exactly do you see in her? Well, I see my whole future. Spouse, couple of mixed kids, hillside house, palm trees, and a big staircase that can take me way up to my happy place, Damascene, domesticated California caliphate. What? L.A. L.A. Lost and left alone. Little about lay Arabs leaves a lad amused. Luxuries assumed, lavishly adorned, limited appearances, living amidst lands annexed, listening adherence led arbitrarily, laws authoritarian, losing always, loving Allah's library, agrarians levied against lethal armies, liberating Assyrians, lyrically at least, amongst Levantines, Africans, legendary affluence, lashing at legalized apartheid, laughing at liars, acting like apes, lying about living arrangements, lounging at lakes, all linguistic ability lacking, a long-awaited lambast, and alas, lackadaisical assassins love acting, lame appropriations, loose associations, left asking, let art lead Adam. L.A. I just want to thank you all for opening up your ears and your hearts to me on my virgin performance. That's strong words. I have a lot of experience performing in many different ways, but this is my first time being here, and I really, really appreciate it. Can we give a round of applause to the Strong Words organizing team? So what I'm about to perform for you all now are just two quick pieces from a stage play, a theatrical concert, if you will, that I put together called Little Syria. And it is essentially my retelling of the story of the very first Syrian migrants to the United States who had settled in the Lower West Side of Manhattan between 1880 to about 1930. It was a little neighborhood there. Some called it the Syrian colony, some called it just the colony, and a lot of people refer to it as Little Syria. Syrians very quickly made their way all across this country. And in fact, the sort of archetype of the way that Syrians sort of made their way in America was that of the peddler, you know, and the story of the peddler. Working his way with his little bucks until he was able to afford a cart, and from the cart to the storefront, from the storefront bought a house in Brooklyn, and hey, we made it. But there's a lot more to the story. And I was able to put this performance together with a good friend of mine, a beat maker by the name of Joey. He's also based here in Los Angeles, and a phenomenal multi-instrumentalist, oud, and piano player by the name of Ronnie Malley, currently on tour with the band's Visit. And we'll be performing it at the Wallace Annenberg Center for Performing Arts in Beverly Hills on July 10th. So save the date. And with that, this is called Pedaling Dervish. Daddy was a mountain man, so naturally he was elevated. But poor me, I'm just an urban son, alas. To these streets I have been relegated, pedaling till I level up to the ecstatic heights of a nebula. Dervish of the dollar, serving the almighty treasurer, the measurer of scales, alchemist of sales, circling around these city blocks with a box full of pretty socks and silver spoons, spinning tails to the upper class woman, make 'em swoon. Cop coming, gotta duck and pass from him or I'm doomed. This is my life, street peddler highlights, and as a result, better than most is my eyesight. Learning the most from these mistakes in hindsight, making a promise that my progenies is better than my life. It's better than my life. It's better than my life. So that one day they can wake up and say, yeah. We live that high life, that cardamom shy life. Early in the morning, just trying to provide life for the family. Whatever it'll take, silk bag by the waist, pedal trinkets by the case. One Mercedes to be made, nothing is too far for a chamois. Lots of directions all over the states. Watch the connections, so I don't gotta pay full price for the jammy. As long as I am able to put rice and lamb shanks on the table, give thanks. Putting cousins on the payroll till banks know my name, Omar. Speaking into existence what my ancestors dreamed of, glimpsing near extinction. Scenes of crimson, all they knew. Now descendants teem with riches, posing for pictures. All aglow, a fortunate few who learn to touch the sky. Hands up, catching blessings like the dervish do. Yeah. Say world, world, world.
Dance, dance, dance till the world's like the point.
Say dance, dance, dance.
Soar, soar, soar till the world is no more.
Say soar, soar, soar. Say high, high, high. Say high, high, high. Hey Omar, are you higher than your neighbors? Higher than them all. Are you higher than the haters?
Higher than them all.
Higher than the raiders?
Higher than them all.
And the last crusaders?
Higher than them all.
Spiritually speaking, I'm peaking. I work for myself, no meetings to be in. Eat when I please, no bosses who creepin'. I frequent the parlors on not just the weekend. He smoke, she smoke, packages of hashish. Bespoke tree smoke, pistachios the pastiche. Green with a Fendi envy, evil eye fiends of frenzy. Thirst is a hell of a curse, man. Sheesh, family first, new friends come lastly. I'm frugal, most blokes don't know it when they pass me. But this village is depending on this poetic savvy. So I charge a pretty penny. You can't just have these, capiche? Habib, this ain't no free speech. My dreams are reached, Khalini Eish. I got teams to teach. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, yeah, that try this again. Say world, world, world.
Dance, dance, dance till the world's like the point.
Say dance, dance, dance.
Soar, soar, soar till the world is no more.
Say soar, soar, soar. Say high, high, high. Say high, high, high. Hey Omar, are you higher than your neighbors?
Higher than them all.
Are you higher than the haters?
Higher than them all.
Are you higher than the raiders?
Higher than them all.
And the last crusaders?
Higher than them all.
Yeah. Higher than them all, man. Cause I'm an optimist and nothing but. Mr. Blue Skies on the up and up. Glass half full plus another cup. Past that fool, full suit of just a button up. Baby been smiling since rubber duck. Yeah. Thank you.
Wow. Wish I could do that. The white boy in me thanks you for clapping on 2 and 4. I got really worried. I was like, oh no. Oh. Pentecostal church, 1 and 3 and 1 and 3. Oh, wow. So, if you haven't been to our show, and you should, we do this amazing thing. I mean, we have music and we have stories. And then, for one night only, we have a whole, museum. We have a pop-up art gallery where amazing artists and photographers and sculptors and performance artists, whatever, they set up and they do it for one night only, and then it goes away. And it's amazing, right? And I don't do it. That's the best part. That's the most amazing part. I don't have to be in charge of it. Instead, that honor goes to my partner in crime, co-founder of Strong Words, but not the what's the word? I forgot the word. Vaudeville, right? Not the vaudeville co-founder. No, he's the real deal. Please welcome Mr. Michael Hirabayashi.
Hi. When we started putting this show together for this year's LA Made, we were Larry and I and Marlena were thinking, what could we do for the visuals? Because so we decided to do a photo slideshow of all the past photographers who displayed their works at Strong Words in Atwater. And so I put together a slideshow, and unfortunately, it's very short. I'd like to show more of these guys' work because they're amazing, but I think we should play it now and see if you like it. Thank you.
everyone. Hi. My name is Michael Kasha, and I love being part of the Strong Words community. I'm not going to rap because I can't. I can barely speak sometimes. But anyways, I attended my very first Strong Words on March 18th, 2017. The stories I heard that night ran the gamut of emotions, and I cried, I laughed, I sighed, I giggled. I was in complete awe of the storytellers and the writing. And that night lit a fire in me, and I knew then that I wanted to be one of them. I attended Strong Words for months and months and months before I gathered the courage to submit a story to Larry Dean Harris. Now, I remember the exact moment I pressed send on the email because panic set in, and I convinced myself that Larry Dean Harris would hate my story and promptly hit delete. A few nerve-wracking days later, he wrote back saying he loved my story and he wanted me in a future show. I was absolutely thrilled, yay. But then panic set in again because I was now going to tell my personal story, this quirky little story, in front of people, in front of other storytellers. And I had never done that before because I was a virgin storyteller. I practiced and I practiced and I practiced, and the night I told my story, June 16th, 2018, a year later, it was truly magical. Everyone, oh, take my picture. Was that the best side of me? But I was happy. Anyways, everyone was so kind to me, welcoming me with open arms and open ears. I felt like one of them. It was really a life-changing moment for me as a writer and as a new storyteller. And for that, I'm forever grateful to Strong Words and Larry and Marlena and Michael. And now all I want to do is tell and write stories, funny stories, sad stories, silly stories. I just love stories. And our next storyteller, what can I say? When I first experienced Rose Abdou for the first time at Strong Words, it was truly wow, wow, wow. I was mesmerized, a little bit in love too. I think she's a storyteller extraordinaire. She is truly one of my favorites, and my heart skips beats. I get so excited when she's around. And here's your chance to see and hear what I'm talking about. Please welcome Rose Abdou.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Oh my goodness. Hello. Is this proper? Is this right? Technical things. Everybody, February is the love month. Not just because of Valentine's Day, but because my parents met, fell in love, and got married in 3 days. In 1960, they met February 16th and they married February 19th. So around our house, February was not only for Valentine's Day, but it was really the love month. I said to my parents, how did you know, after only 3 days, that you wanted to spend the rest of your lives together? And my mother said, you know, Rosemary, I'm going to tell you something very important. When you know, you know. That's it. My father, Peter, was born and raised in Detroit and living in Detroit, and he went to vacation in the Dominican Republic where my mother, Maria de Los Angeles, age 32, was living. Do you know something, honey? By then, everybody thought I was like an old maid. I said, Mom, how did you know? Well, we met at a beautiful party, and his eyes light up behind his glasses when he saw me. So, that's love. I said, Dad, how did you know? I mean, how did you know Mom was the one? Well, there was a real nice party, and there was a big buffet table. And your mother, she fixed me a real nice plate. That's it. So I concluded that love must mean something to do with eyes lighting up and food being served. My father traveled back to the United States, And he wrote to my mother every single day. Well, I wanted to call her, but those long distance rates were out of control. Stay off the phone, girls. He traveled back to Dominican Republic on May 1st with his brother, the Roman Catholic priest. You see, girls, Daddy's brother is a Monsignor, so we were going to get married in the church on May 1st, but not everybody have the red carpet. But because Daddy's brother is the Monsignor, we have the red carpet. Most people have the white carpet. They don't have the red carpet. So people thought we were royalty. Really, I felt like Princess Grace. So their church wedding took place. And after the ceremony, my father said, there we were in the car on the way to the reception, and all the little Dominican kids are crowding around the car. We couldn't get through traffic. Well, of course they were crowding around. They had never seen anything like that before. We were like royalty. And then Daddy had a pocket of change, and it was so embarrassing, but it was kind of good. He threw the money out the window of the car. You should have seen those little Dominican kids scatter. So I concluded that love must mean something to do with the desire to communicate every day, and you can throw money at a problem. Our whole lives, my parents celebrated 2 anniversaries, February 19th and May 1st. And my father always bought my mother little presents on the first day of every month. Not just May 1st, but the first day of every month. He would surprise her with like a bracelet or some chocolates or a bouquet of flowers, and one time, a popcorn popper. Do you see, girls? Daddy is allergic to corn, but Daddy wants us to have popcorn. Daddy cannot have popcorn. He wants us to have popcorn. That's love. So I concluded that love must mean something to do with surprise gifts and sacrifice. My father really admired all of my mother's talents. She can paint, she can sew. She made me shirts from scratch. She made me beautiful ties. Oh, Peter, that's true. I love to create things, and I always grew up with the maids and the cooks, so keeping house was like fun for me. They were always giggling in the kitchen, so I concluded that being in love meant you had to admire each other's talents and laugh at the same things. That stuck with me as I navigated the world of dating. I never wanted to get married. It seemed like that was magical and it worked for them, but that was for other people. And besides, my mother had said, don't try it, it doesn't work for everybody. I never wanted to get married because my whole life I just heard adults say, well, it's a lot of work. Well, why would I want to do that? I mean, love, it was just for other people, you know? I saw love tear apart my friends and my roommates. They would get depressed and they would cry and drink and there was tears and yelling and phones being slammed into cradles. Remember the days where you could slam a phone? And I dated so many people, as you can well imagine. There was that osteopath who was always wanting to serenade me with his accordion. There was that lawyer who called eyeglasses ocularia. Don't do that. And then there was a lighting designer who was very sweet, and we met at a restaurant, and in an effort to be different, instead of bringing me flowers, he brought me a bag of flour. We weren't at my house. We were at a restaurant. It's pretty great, huh? Thought it would make you laugh. It's a bag of flour. I'm like, okay. I put it under the table. We started to leave, and he said, don't forget your flour. Oh, my God. And then we went to a show, and I put it under my chair, and he said, hey, don't forget your bag of flour. I got to carry this thing all night. And I was like, this is just not for me. And after 3 days or 3 dates, if I wasn't crazy about someone, even though I wasn't trying to get married, I would just move on, you know? And sometimes the relationships would last longer than 3 days, you know? There was one that lasted a year with that nice film editor that bought me a lot of earrings, and that really nice guy who owned the court reporting business who would go to Chinatown at 2 a.m. for fried rice. You know, I realized Postmates would have really changed a lot of my dating life. And there were 2 marriage proposals, one from an attorney who wouldn't stop smoking cigars, and the other from an actor whose last name was Bowl. And I wasn't in love with either of them, so of course I wasn't going to say yes. And besides, if I did marry the actor, how could I go through life with a name like Rose Bowl? And he wanted children, so what would we name them? Toilet? Sugar? And I knew I didn't want to get married, but I knew for sure I didn't want children. Because all of my life, all I heard was adults say, well, they're a lot of work. Why would I want to do that? I moved to LA from Chicago in 2001. In November of 2001. And 1 month later, on December 1st, 2001, I went to an art gallery party and I met John Matta. My eyes lit up when I saw him because he had this long, shiny, smooth brown hair. He was so well dressed. He had beautiful teeth. And I just couldn't stop staring at, why does he have that long hair? And I said, we were standing in a little group, and I said, something smells good. And he said, it's me. I don't think so. And he said, no, it is. And he reached out his enormously long arms and he hugged our whole little group toward him. And it was. He asked me where I was from, and I said Chicago, and he said, oh, you Chicago people, you come out here to LA and y'all go out and get drunk and then you marry each other. Is that true? Then he said, you know how sometimes when you're standing online and you're bored? And I said, wait a minute, where are you from that you say online instead of in the Midwest we say standing in line? He said, oh, New Jersey. Oh, okay, continue. And then he said, you know when you're standing online and you're bored so you just swallow money? No. No. No, 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 no. Nobody does that. He said, yeah, you know, I was trying to make everybody laugh, so I just swallowed a handful of quarters. And then he did this, and I could feel them going end over end down my system. What? I was obsessed. This was our first conversation. I said, well, are they still in you? Did you pass them? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? What do you mean you don't know? You swallowed them. Did you pass them? You swallowed money. He's like, well, I don't know. I go, well, and then, of course, that Chicago Second City training kicked in. Well, turn around, let me Heimlich you so I can feed my meter. At the end of the evening, I said we had to go. My friend wanted to leave, and he said, all right, Chicago, don't go off and just get married. And I said, no, I mean, if I did get married, I would marry someone from the East. And then I was horrified because I remembered he said he was from New Jersey, and I was embarrassed. So I said, Far East, like Tokyo. What am I talking about? I got to get away from this guy. And I crossed this crowded art gallery. It was a long room. And he said, hey, Chicago. And I looked at him across the room, and his eyes widened, and he threw a quarter. Now, I have zero athletic ability. And I reached my hand up and effortlessly caught that quarter and put it in my pocket. I felt really cool, and I had chills running down my right side. And then he started pelting me with quarters. My friend Susie said, come on, Rose, let's go. I went, wait, there's money on the floor. So that first night, there were eyes lighting up, and there was money being thrown. But was it money being thrown at a problem, or was it a problem throwing money? He gave me his phone number, and we made a plan to see a show. And at the end of the show, he said, I pretty much want to call you every day. And I found myself saying, okay. I found out that he'd written a sketch show that I really liked, and he watched a television show that I was in. So there was the appreciating of talents and the desire to talk every day. Okay. On our second date, he brought me a gift. A second date of a monkey. When he clapped his hands together, he had cymbals. And a little cereal bowl with a clown at the bottom that said, "All gone." They were the kind of things I wanted but would never buy for myself. And he brought over an enormous amount of Thai food, and I spread it out on the table, and I found myself fixing him a plate from the buffet. And he said, "I really can tell I like you. You know why? I don't even care that you have more shrimp than me." So in other words, there was food being served, there were surprise gifts, and sacrifice. On our third date, he said, "You know I love you, right?" And I said, "Me too." I thought love was for other people. Love was for me? Love was for me. And we got engaged shortly after that. And then 8 years later, our families had never met, so we decided to have a party. And we thought, we might as well just have a wedding. So we got married. We got married. And marriage, it's a lot of work. It doesn't feel like work, really. And it's full of surprises. I mean, sometimes John surprises me with little gifts. Sometimes it's other kinds of surprises. Not bad surprises, but just things I didn't know about him. Like, we'll be in Walmart, and I'll say, "Hey, did you know Patti LaBelle has sweet potato pie? Should I buy a Patti LaBelle sweet potato pie?" These are the things you talk about, And he said, "Oh yeah, I opened for her once. She yelled at me." "What?" "What do you mean she yelled at you? What do you mean what?" He goes, "I told you I did stand-up comedy, and you never told me you opened for, I've known you over 10 years at that point, and you never told me you opened for Patti LaBelle?" "Yeah, she yelled at me, and then she was really nice to my dad." "What?" Why do I have to hear about the neighbors like George wants to know if Ken's using Roundup for an hour? Why do I have to hear about the weed-killing practices of the neighbors? Why don't you tell me stuff like that? Then one time we were in Home Depot and Raspberry Beret was playing. Of course, I was singing along, and John said, "Oh yeah, I used to talk to Prince on the phone." "What?" "When?" "Well, I worked at Martin Short. He would call up and I would talk to him on the phone." "Why didn't you tell me you talk? This is huge. You talked to Prince. Why do I have to hear about how to get a strip screw out of the side stairs for an hour? And you're sitting on information that's interesting to me." So I don't know, it never came up. And one time, we were in the park and I saw a little dog and he goes, "That looks like the kind of puppy Mariah Carey likes to meet her at the airport." "What?" He goes, "Yeah, Mariah Carey's got it in her rider. She likes to be met at the airport with a handful of puppies." I said, and he said it like everybody knows that. I said, "John, how do you know that?" "Because I worked at the VH1 Fashion Awards and Mariah Carey wanted to be met at the airport with at least 5 or 6 puppies." I said, "That is crazy." He goes, "Why? Wouldn't you want to be met at the airport with puppies?" "No, I mean, it's crazy that you never told me that." He goes, "I don't know, it never came up." I said, "John, if you would have told me some of these stories when we were courting, it really would have impressed me. Like, these are so interesting." I said, why wouldn't you bring that up earlier?" "Didn't need it." So he makes me laugh. He makes me laugh every day. And now I'm full of love. And by that, I don't mean I'm full of love. I mean I'm full up on love. I don't want to love anything else. I don't want to love anybody else. Now I love his parents. I love his family. That's more people I got to worry about. I'm done. Now he has the nerve to bring a dog into my life. I made it to the age of 53, never owning a pet. And 4 years ago, he brings a dog home. Now I love that dog. Monkey. I don't want to love anything else. Now I got to worry about my eyes, his eyes, monkey's eyes, my teeth, his teeth, monkey's teeth. Enough. I can't take it now. I love this dog. I said, "John, this is going to kill me. It's going to kill me if something happens to this dog. The dog's not going to be around forever. Now I got to deal with that." And he said to me, "Remember, they bring you joy 1,000,000 times. They only break your heart once." And it's these kinds of things that make me really believe that I met a lot of guys I couldn't live with, but I never met one I couldn't live without until I met John. A couple days ago, I was looking at my Facebook feed and I said, there's so much hate. Oh, there's so much hate being put out there. Someone's got to make love in style. Someone's got to make radical love, acts of love, fashionable, like almost enviable, like everyone's going to want to be doing it. We got to put love into the world. Someone's got to do that. And he just looked at me with those ridiculously perfect teeth. And he said, why not you? What? I have to do that? I got to talk about love? So I'm here to ask you to go forward and do something loving, not just for like someone you already love that expects it, but a random loving act every day. If each of us could just do that for someone that doesn't expect it. Because love, I thought it was for certain people, for other people, but love, love is for everybody. It's for all of us. Happy Love Month. Thank you.
What does that do? Wendy, we have a heart out at 4, right? Yes. Okay, I'm going to read really fast. Usually I write a news story, and I'm like working all night the night before, and I was trying to do that, and I was like, oh my God, everything I'm writing is like a suicide note. You know, it's like you open Facebook and you're... So sometimes you write a story and you break it at strong words, and then you take it away and you do it for a couple of other folks, and it gets a little better. And that's the great thing about stories. They're never perfect. The more you tell them, the better they get. Hope this doesn't suck. Linda Gerlich was a rock star. Her mom was a genius, and my dad was always on the lookout for new ways to entertain his family as long as they were free. On Sundays, we'd venture to the airport and watch the planes take off, back when you could do that. Every 4th of July, we'd park alongside the cornfield to gaze at the fireworks in the nearby town. And every Memorial Day, we'd dutifully drive to nearby Pemberville to watch the parade. This was pure small town Americana. Beauty queens, tractors, beauty queens on tractors. And here it comes, the star attraction. Now, champion football teams, they came and went in this Ohio farm community, but the mighty marching Eastwood Eagles were a consistent source of community pride. Lawrence J. McCormick, Mr. Mac as he was affectionately known, had pulled a Harold Hill of sorts, transforming farm kids into Class A award-winning musicians. Marching with pride and precision, brasses blaring, percussion pounding, and at the heart of the drum section was this Linda Gerlich, rocking the Tim Toms. Linda was stout and strong, dark and exotic, the genetic byproduct of fine German engineering and Mexican-American fortitude. Back in 1970s Pemberville, we didn't know what butch was. It was just a haircut back then. Her strength, her precision and discipline, the rhythms and cadence and sheer audacity of a girl to bang those drums loud and proud, and the entire marching band, 120 strong, following and marching to her beat. I was 6 years old. That's what I want to do. I have to be in that parade. At the mall, I exchange weeks of allowance money for my first pair of drumsticks at Grinnell's, and the sonic assault on my family begins. Normally, I would go back and play the drums and show you, but if there's one rule that drummers have, we don't share our drums. Right? Trust me. I build a makeshift drum set with Mom's Tupperware and pie tins, and soon had mastered all the drum parts on my sister's record albums, including the drum solo from In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. So when Mrs. Gerlich, Linda's mom, our local Avon lady, came to call, she recognized opportunity. Mrs. Gerlich was fancy. She had to be. She was the only Mexican in the entire town who didn't work in the fields. How she wound up here, I have no idea, but she was amazing. Shiny red lipstick, talked fast, and always smelled like rose petals. And she was smart. She peddled gossip along with her Avon wares. She knew her audience. And Mrs. Gerlich realized that she could bring her daughter Linda on calls to give me drum lessons, thereby making my mom a captive audience and forced to buy Avon while I learned to play. So the aftershaves and the lipsticks and the lotions and the blush begin to pile up as I get better. I was relentless. My poor parents. I was just tapping on everything. I'd tap on the dashboard in the car. I'd tap on the dinner table. And my mom would finally just like grab my hands. She'd be like, just don't touch anything. Don't move your fingers. Boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom. I wanted a drum set more than anything. And then that one magic Christmas morning, I came downstairs and under the tree was waiting a guitar. Ostensibly, the guitar was to give me a musical foundation and teach me to read music. But the truth was, guitars were just a lot cheaper than drums, and my parents were sure this was just a phase. 3 years of guitar lessons later, I demanded my birthright. And my parents acquiesced with a shiny red Gretsch drum set in the realization they would never have a moment's peace for the rest of their lives. But there was a price. At the age of 12, said parents, load me and that shiny red drum set into a bus along with 30 teenagers, all older than me, 2 uptight Pentecostal ministers. We were ambassadors of the Lord, heading out on tour to spread the word of Jesus Christ through our ministry of music. We would go out for weeks at a time, playing churches in different towns and staying with host families. No one thought twice about trusting their children to complete strangers hundreds of miles away. Once, in Athens, Ohio, I was hosted by this hippie-looking guy who claimed he had been an early member of Joe Walsh's band, the James Gang. We start rapping about music, and then he lit up a joint and offered me a hit. No thanks, I'm 12. So the whole drumming for Jesus thing is a crazy story in and of itself, but I got that out of the way. I fulfilled my rock and roll fantasy of life on the road, and it was time to get serious about my music. It was time for 7th grade. Time to join the band. Mr. Mack, the wiry, soft-spoken man, both feared and revered, could cut you to shreds with a single glance. He caught me holding my drumsticks wrong once. Who do you think you are, Ringo? But that's what it took, Greatness sometimes requires being tough on those you love. He was outnumbered 120 to 1. And the only weapons he had were passion, a whistle, and a baton. And Miss Conway, always there with a boutonniere for the big concert. So one afternoon, I pop into the music room during study hall to find Mr. Mack in a contemplative mood on the piano. Poor man probably just wanted a minute's peace, but in I barged. What's that you're playing? Chopin, he smiles. I roll my eyes. Someday, you'll understand. We forget, for all the pomp and pageantry of parades, that marching bands were originally created for the military, right? They took artists and they made them into soldiers. But Mr. Mack, he took farmers and made us into artists under the guise of soldiers. So this one time at band camp, Mr. Mack wore a bathing suit that was a lot tinier than everybody else's. And that was weird. It was also the first time I saw my best friend Gary naked. And that was weird. And cool. No, weird. Weird. Kinda cool. A few weeks later, Gary and I got very cool. Very cool and very terrified because we were convinced we were the only gay people in the world, us and Stephen Carrington of Dynasty. To be gay in Pemberville, we don't tell a soul. So Mr. Mack retires a year he graduates. He knew it wasn't going to get any better than that. A year later, during our freshman year at college, Gary and I muster the courage to venture into our first gay bar in nearby Toledo, Ohio. Mr. Mack? Oh my God, Mr. Mack is gay. Well, that explains all those Donna Summer medleys. But what about poor Miss Conway? She knows, he smiles. So there we are, having drinks with the man we both loved and feared for all these years, and he's getting drunk. Let me guess. You realized you were gay somewhere between your junior and senior year. Yes. How did you know? Oh, you started dressing better. And out come the stories, and we learned that marching bands are filled with gay people. Yes, Linda Gerlich, but also Mike Weiss and Perry Walston and so many others. Mr. Mack tells us he's going back to school, so we invite him to our college parties, and he shows up. We never share the secret with our old band friends, but somewhere there are photos of all of us drunk and laughing with our arms around each other and beers in hand. And a few short years later, Mr. Mack is gone. I drink water when I'm about to cry. The cause of death listed in the obituary. I don't believe it, because it's the late 80s. But again, I keep this to myself. I never stop playing the drums, right? You just don't. I play in pit orchestras and bands, and once I got to play Mustang Sally on stage with Sir Mac Rice, the man who wrote Mustang Sally. Ride, Sally, ride. But I play less and less as the years go by. Then a year ago, about this time, I'm at the Gay Pride Parade in Palm Springs with Gary and Gary's partner Terry, and there we are, Larry and Gary and Terry, and don't you just want to puke? And up marches the Desert Winds Freedom Band. Mostly folks in their 50s and 60s and the 70s, and they are puffing. But they are fantastic, right? And this big old queen is leading the band, and he throws that baton way up in the air, and the whole crowd cheers when he catches it. Then he reaches for an inhaler. And the drummers, they are magnificent and butch. Their hands move as one as they tap out the cadence that leads into the Lady Gaga anthem, Born This Way. 50 years later, I say it again. That's what I want to do. I want to be in that parade. So I joined the band. And I love it. Our first Pops concert, it's just like Pemberville all over again. The entire community turns out. The gay veterans stand and salute during the patriotic anthems. And afterwards, there are dilly bars from Dairy Queen because, of course, the local Dairy Queen is owned by two queens. My friend John says to me, well, you were certainly having fun up there, but weren't you just being a bit too theatrical, holding those cymbals up so high? That's the way cymbals are supposed to be played, John. You hold them up so they resonate, and also because I like the attention. Last November, was my first parade in a very long time. We were artists and soldiers marching because we've earned the right to. We've come a long way from Pembervilles all across America. Maybe our formations weren't as tight, maybe our notes weren't as crisp and pitch perfect, but one thing was certain. I was smiling, and I was really loud. Thank you. Let's get that sexy band back up here. Okay. You gonna do my favorite? Wendy said yes. Oh, good. All right. So here's the deal. As soon as we're done, tumultuous applause, and then everybody gets the hell out because there's somebody else coming in. All right? But please find us, strongwordslive.com. We're on the Facebook. We tweet. We do all those things you haven't been doing because your phones were off, right? Okay, great. It's been an amazing afternoon. Thank you so much for being such a great audience. Woo! Please welcome back the house band, David, Harley, and Edendale.
I do want to be your house band. That's actually right. We're going to close with a song that's explicitly about LA in keeping with the library's theme here. And my dad's love of LA rubbed off on me. And he came out here in 1968. And my dad was an alcoholic who recovered the year before, and he was making a new start in life, a new beginning, and he chose LA and brought our family out the next year. And he'd take us as kids and see the sights and the sounds of this city all the time. And we're going to take you a few places today with this song. It's called I Have a Crush on LA. Another perfect LA winter, another day so pretty. There's an awful lot of beauty and a whole lot of gritty. Some seen and sometimes hidden in this here city. Take it, boys! Come saddle up in your jeans and leather and wrap your arms around me now. We're gonna ride together. Today we'll see the mountains, the desert and the sea. So hold on tight, ready, set, go on a 1, 2, 3, and ready, set, go on a 1, 2, 3. I got a few places I want you to see. Gonna do my best, gonna be your guide. Through Los Angeles, we're gonna ride. Glendale, Palmdale, Signal Hill, Echo Park, Highland Park, Griffith Park, Bunker Hill, Sun Valley, Simi Valley, Green Valley, Westlake, Vernon, Herman, Sherman, Oaks, and Silver Lake, Covina, West Covina, Gardena, Temple City, Love, Plenty, Altadena, Pasadena, Lakewood, Linwood, Brentwood, Inglewood, Artesia, Cerritos, Hawaiian Gardens, Hollywood, Topanga, Latuna, Alhambra, Silmar, Diamond Bar, Azusa, Tarzana, Chinatown, Koreatown, Historic Filipino Town, Eagle Rock, Little Rock, they all rock. Travel Town down in San Dimas, La Mirada, Hawthorne, Wandslow, Steelers, and Long Kenyatta, North Hills, Southgate, Westwood, East LA, Arleta, Lomita, Santa Monica Bay, Whittier, Bellflower, Bell Gardens, and Bell, San Marino, San Pedro, and San Gabriel. Here I grew up, I think I'm gonna stay. I've got a crush on LA. I think of my dad. He bought a bus fare to a new life, a story not rare. City vast, wonders abound. What you're looking for, I bet can be found. And you know, we ain't seen nothing yet. Thank you. I want to introduce my band. We were going to do that on the song before, but on my left, on bass guitar and vocals, Carson Cohen. And to my right, on guitar and vocals, Mr. Ken Belcher. On keyboards and in the studio with me all the time, Jose Luis Salazar. And on drums, Mr. Reed Pryor. Thank you, everyone.
I have one quick announcement I forgot, and I'll never hear the end of it. Our next show is March 25th, and it marks the return of one Jimmy Doyle. Jimmy Doyle asked to program the show. It's going to be an all-Irish show, and it's going to be insane. So that's all I'm saying. We'll see you March 25th. Thank you.